Hi, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're going to be talking about my absolute favorite smart home product. That's the Lutron Caseta Smart Switch. You're going to say, Smart Switch, really? It's your favorite? Yes, it is. Stay tuned to find out why. So we've had dozens of these Lutron Caseta, either the smart switches or the Pico remotes. We have a combination throughout, and we've had them for years now. And they are one of the very few smart home products that never, ever has given us a problem. And that's really saying something to start. They run on their own proprietary Clear Connect wireless setup. So there is a hub for them, but one hub, one time, and they work flawlessly. One of the best attributes about these smart home switches is that when you connect the Lutron hub over to Home Assistant, it actually passes along the Pico remote presses. So you can actually put a Pico remote on the wall, not actually have it interact with the lights, but do whatever else you want. A couple of examples. I have one button that unlocks the charger cord on our Tesla. I have another button that activates different lights within our bar area where we have smart plugs throughout, and it turns all those on, and those are different brands. I believe we have an Akara smart plug, a Sylvania smart plug, as well as some Y smart plugs in that area, and they all interact fine because they're all connected into Home Assistant. And as I mentioned, the Pico remotes, they're the best. So what you see here, you would think at first sight is a three-gang switch. It's not. It's actually a two-gang switch with a Pico remote floating on the wall in front and then snapped around with the cover. So you can see, it's sturdy on here, no issues, and it looks like a regular outlet. You're going to say immediately, well, that's the one with the bump. Well, you can actually put these where there is normal wiring, and you cap off the wires behind it, and so there's actually a spot on the wall for that, or you can put it where there's not, and you really can't tell the difference. So here's an example where there's not a spot right here, and next I'll show you a spot where there is wiring behind it. And here's an example of a Pico where there actually is wiring behind it. And we have plenty of examples, such as this one, both of these, both the Pico remote and the normal switch, both have wiring behind them. This one has wiring, and this one has wiring. Wait a minute. This one doesn't have wiring. And you couldn't tell the difference because all this one has is, a single gang. And you're saying, well, how is there not wiring if it's a single gang? What you do is you put the 3M command strip on the back of the remote, and then you put the cover around it, and it looks just like if there's wiring in the wall and you had a switch. So this is a great example of a spot where the electrician did not put a switch and really should have. It's right outside the office in a hallway. So if you walk in or out of the office, you'd have to go somewhere else to use the light switch to be able to see if it's dark. And that doesn't really make much sense. So put a Pico remote right here, and there's no wiring behind it. And this one does have the wiring. So again, you really can't see much of a difference here between where there's a wired Pico remote or not wired, but they look really nice in my opinion. And they're nice and functional for folks that aren't used to a smart home. You push the top to turn it on, the bottom to turn it off, you can dim it, and you can even utilize the scene button in the middle, the favorite button. And as you may have guessed, we have a lot of switches throughout. More switches, more switches. Here's some more switches. And we have more switches, more switches. In this instance, I didn't want to splurge on the 5-gang, so I actually just put the one that doesn't have any wiring behind it in a separate spot, just to the right of the area that has wiring. So there's a 4-gang with the 5th one to the right, not having any wiring behind. So again, that's just got some 3M strips behind it, but it's really hard to tell the difference. And then that's utilized to control all of the lights. This is in our living room. You can see there's 3 switches off to the left, but if you just use that one on the right, it's the master switch. The one on the left in this instance is not actually, doesn't actually have wiring behind it. So this is an example of where we have a 2-gang wall box, and then we just have that remote off to the side, but have the cover around all of them, so it looks like it's all integrated into one. Here's three switches. The one on the right is actually a low voltage switch. We utilize that for the theater step lights that are low voltage. They have a low draw, so that one works for those where some of the other switches don't. Make sure you like and subscribe so you don't miss the other videos I do, such as the home theater tour. And in the theater, we have some Pico remotes that we keep with the remotes in the back of the theater typically. So Harry, I guess you think that's a lot of switches, don't you? Of course it is, because we love Lutron Caseta. And you said, you have so many. How do you know you really love them? I'll tell you how. We know because we bought a bunch of other switches. These right here are some GE branded Zigbee switches. They're, I believe, made by Jasco. They're just garbage. So what would happen is I put a bunch of these in the walls and some other switches in the walls, and we'd have issues when we had power outages. We have pretty frequent power outages here. We live in a rural area, and a lot of the wires are above ground. So we have issues with the fact that there's a storm or a car accident or whatever else, and our electric goes out. So when it comes back on, it tends to kill these. So these were just going right down the drain, and we realized we wanted something, more flexible, more reliable, durable. We did have some connectivity issues with these, even though we had, really solid mesh network, still, had issues throughout. So lots of issues. Also, once in a while, these would disconnect for whatever reason, and they're hardwired, and I really don't understand what was going on with them. Also, these require neutral wires, and Lutron Caseta, they don't. You get those dimmers, and you put them in there. No neutral wires, super easy to wire them up. They don't have this big bulky, back to them either. So these, you had to wire them up the neutral wire and then try to get these into the boxes without having, the wires crushed or them sticking out or whatever else. And certainly glad we moved on from these and found our loved light switch, Lutron Caseta. So a little bit ago, I told you that this switch right here, they both don't have any wiring behind them. So why would we want extra switches? Well, when we built the house, the electrician that did all the wiring told us he knew better than what we did. We should listen to him. He knows how to wire a house. He knows what we're going to need. So what you end up with when somebody says that, well, you have to go to 1, 2, 3, 4 different locations if you want to turn on or off all of the lights in the kitchen. But if you have these, all you have to do is tap once, and you're going to have all your kitchen lights go off. And there's no popcorn effect or anything else like you get on some of the other smart switches. You just have that easy single switch press, and you're in business. No walking around the kitchen to all the different switches because the electrician knows better. You might ask, how else do we use our smart switches? Well, if I go to bed, go to lay down, I want to leave a light on because maybe I'm reading something or looking at something and not really ready for it to be turned off, or I want to, maybe dim it some. I can just tell our Google or one of the Amazon assistants that we have, or one of our Siri devices, such as the watch, to dim the lights or turn them on or off. So it's very easy. And then when it's time for bed, we can just also mention it to one of the assistants, have that happen, and we can turn the fan on too if we like. So that's another great use. Another good example is a timer. So if you have, a dusk to dawn type setup, you can have that automatically turn on or off at certain times, or, something set to the sun. Lots of options there that you can automate. Furthermore, with the Lutron Caseta, the Pico remotes, which we have one right here, what I can do with those is I can go ahead and tell it which lights to control. So we can have it control a bunch of lights or one light, and you can set the favor button in the middle to be a certain level of, brightness, a certain percentage of brightness there, and lots of options. And I already mentioned that within Home Assistant, you can program the buttons on the Pico remote to do different things. So it's another great advantage of those. They're very versatile. And the last thing I want to mention is the integration. It's a local integration within Home Assistant and within Apple HomeKit. So you have that advantage, but it's really flexible. It works with the Amazon Assistant, it works with Google, it works with Samsung Smart Things. So whatever whatever hub you're using or whatever assistant you're using, the ecosystem you're in, it probably works with them. And like I said, it's just been totally bulletproof. It's been perfect. Never had an issue. And I was told actually another thing these are typically used for is a flip, because you don't even need the hub if you just have it controlling a 1-for-1 with a Pico remote and a switch. So a lot of people have older homes that maybe their stairwell isn't in compliance, so they're able to go ahead and use a Pico remote with the Lutron Caseta switch and then get that stairwell into compliance with the light switch at the top and the bottom as a safety issue. Another thing we do typically is integrate the switches with motion sensors and door sensors. So very versatile there and really great for our automations. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. You don't want to miss the future videos. I'm going to go in depth on some of our home automations, how we have that set up within Home Assistant, and that's